Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's re-review an ink today, shall we? Now, this is another one of my very earliest ink reviews, and I don't know, I think I've gotten a bit better at it over time, and the tests have gotten more comprehensive, so I thought I'd re-review this ink. In fact, I think it might have been my very first ink review that I posted on YouTube. And it's Diamine Blue Black. And I had a sample of it. In fact, I think I had like 3 samples that I consolidated, and this is what's left. But I also have this box of cartridges. And as you can see, these used to have 18 cartridges in it, and I guess there's 5 now, so I do quite enjoy the color. Now, let's check out the Diamine Super Swatch of blues that I've made. Now, blue-black is down here at the corner. We've got teal, Prussian blue, indigo, majestic, sapphire, presidential, Florida, Sargasso, midnight, Kensington, denim, Asa, bilberry, and Mediterranean. And if you sort of pull back and look at this, you can see that the blue-black actually isn't the darkest blue that they have. Denim is actually pretty dark, and Sargasso Sea shades really well, and it sheens like crazy, and it's actually kind of darker than their blue-black. So, also thought I'd compare it to some other sort of blue-blacks. Here's Diamine's up at the top. Here's Noodler's, which you can see is not only darker, but also has just a touch of green in it. Private Reserve Midnight Blues, which sort of has more of a purple to it. And Noodler's Air Core Blue Black, which is, I believe, is part of their V-Mail series, maybe? Maybe it's not, but that one's infamous for being a very green blue-black, so. Check out the chromatography. Now, as you can probably see, if the camera will focus, most of it wants to wash away. If the chromatography paper was longer, it probably would almost entirely wash away. There's this light blue, goes into this very dark blue, and then into this baby blue, which for some reason my camera is turning the corners kind of like a aqua-ish, but it's just turquoise, so. And that's common for Diamine, not known for their water resistance. Now, the pens that I used were this Italix Parsons Essential with a Broad-Cursive-Italic-Stub and this AG Spalding Bros. Of course, I'm always holding it upside down, with a medium nib, but these nibs are actually manufactured in Japan, so I'd say it's more like a medium that's very close to being a fine. Type down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. Nice shading, which in part is why I wanted to use the stub, because it really brings out that shading. That flat end of the nib really pulls the ink around. 14 seconds to dry. I'd say the flow is like maybe a 5 or a 5.5 out of 10. It's very steady. You don't have to fight it out of the nib, but it's not going to come flowing out. So, yep. Yeah, I say that I don't really see this as a blue-black. Blue-blacks tend to have more darkness in them, as the black part of that would sort of imply. But yeah, no bleed feather spread. I said there's echo if you're sensitive to it, but there really isn't. Yeah, no, not really, so I don't know what I was talking about. But there's no sheen either. And as is the case with many Diamine inks, really not resistant to water. But I think people sometimes forget that that means that generally they're very easy to clean out of your pens. Also, this ink has never dyed any of my converters or feeds or the sac inside of a Hero 616. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where again you get very nice shading. 13 seconds to dry. Still a nice dark blue, almost like a navy pea coat, maybe a bit lighter than that, but I'm not really seeing blue-black. I like the color, not sure it's a blue-black. Yeah. No bleed feather spread. Very well behaved. That's totally gone. I mean, you can barely, and like, if you've seen my other reviews, the camera is able to pick up much more than my eye easily can, and that's still really gone. Next is Tomoe River Paper, where I couldn't really get it to sheen, but sometimes it does have this dark red, almost black sheen. You can sort of, maybe you can get a hint of in the halo. But yeah, so 13 seconds to dry. Again, the stub really brought out that potential for shading. I said it seemed to hint at green, but I think once it dried, it just stayed bright. It stayed solid blue, so ignore that. There is some halo effect in the wettest parts, like you see here, and that you sort of see, let's see, at the end of the T or in the eye, things like that. There's that dark outline. I really like that. So no bleed feather spread. There definitely is echo potential just because this paper is so darn thin and this is a very dark blue ink. And yeah, look at that water test. It's just gone. Again, the camera is generally better at picking that up than I am, and oh god, look at those dots. Those are really gone. So really not a lot of water resistance. Now all of these were done with the Broad-Cursive-Italic-Stub. For the 3 more absorbent papers, I used the AG Spalding. And as you can see, it sort of seems like a darker blue here, because without that shading, it seems to darken. I still don't really see it as a blue-black, I see it as a dark, rich blue. 2.5 seconds to dry. No shading. There is a lot of spread. If you look at the... Never mind, I can't do that. Anyways, it's... I mean, does this look like almost a fine to you? I mean, it's very intense. I say here it's quite furry looking. Like if you look at the word furry, you can kind of see that. Yeah. I said the bleed is pretty nasty for what is very nearly a fine nib. And what isn't nearly bleed is very intense echo. Now this is kind of cool. This is something that happens on the more absorbent papers. The dark blue sort of stays, and this light blue seems to dye the page. So you could recover that if you didn't allow yourself to be distracted by that bright blue. Next is Mead Notebook Paper. 3.5 seconds to dry. Really no shading left. Yeah, not great. And for I mean, again, because this is cheap paper, you see that at the edges there's more potential for bleed just because of how cheaply it's made. But there is some very intense echo, but if you only care about true bleed, then that might not bother you. Yeah, I say it's very woolly looking, but there really aren't many genuine feathers. You don't really see feathering, you just see this really intense sort of woolliness. And again, you can see how the paper started to act like chromatography paper and just sort of like sucked the water up. Again, it was more the light blue that dyed the page and the dark blue sort of remained. And lastly is Moleskine Notebook Paper, where this paper is really bizarre. This is the genuine stuff. This is the stuff that you'll find in Moleskine notebooks now, not that well-behaved stuff. And it took 8 seconds to dry, and as you can see, you do get a bit of shading, but where you have that shading is also where you have the feathers. I'm going to try and bring this close and hold it really still. You see that? Like in the X in boxing, the L in lazy, the W. 8 seconds to dry. I can't explain it, because this is absorbent paper, and yet, you know, meh. Yeah. And for a fine-ish nib with a really not at all wet ink, to see this much bleed, that's just kind of embarrassing. So yeah, really not an ideal ink and paper combo, I'm thinking. I mean, maybe you've had an extra fine, it was super dry, maybe, but... And then the water test, again, the light blue really sort of exploded around the page, but even what's at the center feathered and just blew up, and it'd be very difficult to read or recover. Anyway, so there you go. There's Diamine Blue Black, re-reviewed for your consideration from the Triple N Network. And the audio just spontaneously cut out. Anyways, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.